Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is R.S. Raghu, and with me is Aditi Lumba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses virtually the plenary session of 7th Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, says India's Act Far East policy enhance cooperation with the Russian Far East in various fields. India-Japan 2+2 ministerial dialogue to be held in Tokyo on Thursday. India invites Bangladesh business community to use its port infrastructure for transshipment to other countries. Vladimir Putin condemns Western sanctions imposed because of Russia's military operations in Ukraine. New Delhi tells the United Nations that it attaches high importance to ensuring the safety and security of nuclear facilities in Ukraine. Thousands of protesters rally in Indonesia to reverse the hike in fuel price. Voters in Chile reject a new constitution which was due to replace the one drawn up under Gen Augusto Pinochet's military rule. World number 1 Iga Swiatek, Jonathan Sinner and Karolina Pliskova in action at quarter-final matches at the US Open. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that India is keen to strengthen its partnership with Russia on Arctic subjects. Addressing the plenary session of 7th Eastern Economic Forum being held in Vladivostok through video conferencing, Mr. Modi said there is immense scope for cooperation in the field of energy. He said, along with energy, India has also made significant investments in the Russian Far East in the fields of pharma and diamonds. The Prime Minister said in 2019 he had a chance to participate in this forum face-to-face, and at that time he had announced the Act Far East policy of India. He said as a result, India's cooperation with the Russian Far East has increased in various fields. Mr. Modi said today this policy has become a major pillar of the special and privileged strategic partnership of India and Russia. He said, in today's globalized world, incidents in one part of the world create an impact on the whole world. Mr. Modi said the Ukraine conflict and the COVID pandemic had a major impact on global supply chains. He said food grain, fertilizer and fuel shortages are a matter of great concern for developing countries. The Prime Minister said from the very beginning of the Ukraine conflict, India has emphasized the need to adopt the path of diplomacy and dialogue. He said India supports all peaceful efforts to end this conflict. Mr. Modi said this month 30 years are being completed since the establishment of the Consulate of India in Vladivostok. He said India was the first country to open a consulate in this city.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will leave for Japan today on a 4-day official visit after completing his Mongolia visit. Mr. Singh, along with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, will participate in the second India-Japan 2+2 ministerial dialogue in Tokyo tomorrow. The Japanese side will be represented by Minister of Defence Yasukazu Hamada and Minister of Foreign Affairs Yoshimasa Hayashi. The 2+2 dialogue will review the bilateral cooperation across domains and chart out the way forward. India and Japan are pursuing a special strategic and global partnership. This year marks 70 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries. In addition to 2+2 dialogue, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will separately hold bilateral talks with his Japanese counterpart to further strengthen defence cooperation between the two countries across various sectors. He is also scheduled to call on the Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, during the visit. Mr. Singh will also attend a community event organised by Embassy of India in Tokyo and interact with Indian diaspora in Japan. In today's Hotspot section, we have a discussion on India-Japan 2+2 ministerial meeting. In conversation are Skandranjan Dayal and former diplomat and Sanjay Jha, journalist.
In the 2+2 dialogue, the two sides are expected to deliberate on ways to further expand bilateral cooperation in areas of defense and security besides taking stock of the developments in the Indo-Pacific. Ambassador, what can we expect from this edition of talk between two countries?
This is a very important dialogue with a very special partner. Japan is our special strategic and global partner since 2014. And we have such dialogue with very important and close strategic friends. For instance, we have a similar dialogue with United States, and US and Japan both are members of Quad, where India is also a member along with Australia. And the focus of this dialogue would be on defense and security related issues. The first such dialogue took place in December 2019, and it was very important, and same two ministers had participated from our side, and the focus was on terrorism, stability in Indo-Pacific, and of course peace, prosperity and progress in bilaterally as well as in the region. Because what we need to note is that there is a convergence in the vision of India and Japan as far as the challenges to security and defense which are emanating in the Indo-Pacific region, and they are emanating from China. China is in an expansionist mode. It is putting India under pressure in Ladakh, in Arunachal Pradesh, and across the border in Bhutan. And similarly, China is putting Japan under pressure in the East China Sea.
You spoke about the security aspects of this dialogue. We have seen China's growing military capability and assertiveness on the territorial disputes, and they are at the heart of the deteriorating environment of India and Japan. Beijing has sought to unilaterally alter the territorial status quo, and this meeting comes at a time when Japan-China relations are facing various difficulties. And Tokyo has admitted that the public opinion against China in Japan is extremely severe. We have also seen growing Chinese assertion for the eastern Ladakh to the Senkaku Islands. So both the countries are facing this assertiveness of China. Do you think these issues could dominate the second India-Japan 2+2 ministerial meeting?
Yes, I would think that security-related issues where the main challenger may come from China would be the central and core part of this dialogue, particularly in the context of how China tried to put extreme pressure on Taiwan just in the last month or so, and has disturbed the peace and tranquility of the entire Western Pacific. And Japan, as we know, as our listeners know, has been a pacifist nation. It has a pacifist constitution after the Second World War, but it is now waking up to the threat being posed by a China which is getting very rapidly militarized, which is expanding its blue water navy very rapidly, and blue water navy is an offensive capacity. And under Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who passed away unfortunately, Japan had started to change its defense posture in three major ways. One, that it is increasing its defense spending, and they want to increase the defense spending from 1% of GDP to 2% of GDP. And Japan is also ready to assume more military responsibility by joining regional alliances. And we have seen, like Malabar exercises, they are becoming more and more important and are becoming more and more strategy driven with the participation of United States and Australian Army also.
Ambassador, you mentioned how Japan is recasting its national security vision in face of aggressive China. Now, that is the challenge for India. I think India must inject some strategic content into ties during this 2+2 dialogue. There's a deep political resistance and bureaucratic inertia against any effort to recast defense policies on Japan as well as India. But then there is so much that Delhi and Tokyo could do together in meeting their common security challenge. What kind of agreements do you think we could see coming out of this meeting?
Japan has been assisting India in many ways in trying to strengthen our infrastructure, our industrial development. We also saw how this Suzuki company will be investing rupees 30,000 crore more in India. So this collaboration needs to extend also to defense industry. There has been a lot of talk about purchase of some defense equipment, some submarines from Japan, but it has not fructified. I hope that some advance takes place in getting Japanese defense industry more integrated with India's rising defense capabilities. And here the biggest assistance can come from Japan government side, that they should facilitate transfer of technology from Japanese companies to Indian companies, just as the Russian companies do. Russian defense manufacturers under the Russian government guidance transfer real sophisticated cutting edge technology to India, whether it is in aeroplanes or Sukhoi or nuclear submarine or even in tanks. Similarly, the Japanese government should motivate its private defense manufacturing companies to not look only at profits, but treat India as a real defense partner and transfer state-of-the-art technology to Indian companies.
You spoke about the trade relationship, how economic ties between two countries can benefit each other. Japan has been invested in India right from 1958. It is the largest and the first recipient of Japanese Official Development Assistance Program. They call it ODA. And it is the most important development partners for India. So far, they have invested over 7,000 billion Japanese yen in ODA loans, which in different kind of projects, I think around 310 public projects across various sectors. And we have seen Japanese financial aid has made significant headway in facilitating advancement spanning sectors of transport, water, sanitation, energy, forestry, agriculture, health, and education. So we have seen urban mobility, where Japanese have been funding all our metro projects. In terms of financial relationship, in terms of investment, what are the new areas they could be looking to invest into? Because India is looking for green energy, for example. Do we see more cooperation, more money coming into from Japan to India?
Yes, you are right. In the transport sector, the Japanese investment has been transformational. First, the Suzuki investment in India's automobile industry, and that transformed the private car scenario in India. Then, of course, the investment in Delhi Metro first, and we see in Metro now in so many other cities of India. And this Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor and other corridors that are being built and constructed, they will also transform the railways sector. Now the next major candidate is in green energy, and we see that Suzuki's investment, which was just announced last month in the presence of the Honorable Prime Minister in Gujarat, the Suzuki company will take the lead in manufacturing electrical vehicles in India. They will invest rupees 7,300 crores in a battery plant in India. And most important, Suzuki will establish a research and development center owned by itself as a company in India. And this really gels very well with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's call on 15th August that he said, Jai Anusandhan, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Jai Vigyan, and Jai Anusandhan. He has been emphasizing that research and innovation is very important for India's development, and we see that a major Japanese company, Suzuki, which is already successful in India, is taking the lead and is making major commitments towards production of electrical vehicles in India, towards production of electrical batteries in India. And you would also know that India has not allowed import of Tesla cars, electric cars manufactured in China into India at concessional terms. So India is working very closely with our partners in Japan. This is only one example, and I am sure in the years to come, we will see many more such examples which may be discussed in this 2+2 dialogue which will take place in Tokyo.
Our Prime Minister had visited Japan and it followed after Japanese Prime Minister visited for the first time in 4.5 years as a Prime Minister of Japan. And two leaders concurred to further develop Japan-India relations and work closely towards the realization of a free and open Indo-Pacific. So that is the synergy between two countries, the fusion between two prime ministers. Where do we see this free and open Indo-Pacific relationship going on between these two countries? Do you think there will be some discussion on that aspect in the current 2+2 meeting?
Certainly, India's Act East policy and Japan's vision for free, open Indo-Pacific, they are two sides of the same coin, and all the democratic countries in Indo-Pacific region are working together in some coordination to keep Indo-Pacific free and open. Now, actually, how it will be done, what will be the division of responsibilities, that will be part of discussions which may not become public. But we see a lot of intelligence sharing. For instance, if the Chinese submarines go around in this area, they are tracked by US, American, Japanese, Australian, Indian systems. This intelligence should be shared, and by satellites also the movements are shared. So there are many ways by which India and Japan can actually coordinate on the ground our defense preparedness. But again, this is a long-term objective, and it is very important that India becomes militarily strong as well as economically strong. India has a very growing and major manufacturing sector. If we are moving towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, we need foreign investment, we need foreign technology. Japan has good reserves for investment abroad. Their companies want to shift their investment from China to India, to Vietnam, to other countries. In that, again, Japanese government should encourage its companies to shift their production to India in preference to other countries. And Japanese companies normally work in close coordination with the Japanese government, and some strong signals, some assistance from Japanese government will help in this movement of capital and technology from Japan to India.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
India has invited the Bangladesh business community to use its port infrastructure for transshipment to other countries. The Indian side informed that it has offered free transit via its territory to Bangladesh for exporting its product to third countries through specified land customs stations (LCS). Airports and seaports, said the joint statement issued during the visit of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to India. India has also been providing free transit to Bangladesh for exporting its products to Nepal and Bhutan. The Bangladesh side also requested rail connectivity with Bhutan through the newly inaugurated Chilahati-Haldibari route. The Indian side agreed to consider the request based on its viability and feasibility. To make this and other cross-border rail links viable, the Indian side requested the Bangladesh side to remove port restrictions at the Chilahati-Haldibari crossing, among other things. Reiterating the importance of facilitating trade between the two countries, both the leaders stressed the urgent need for upgradation of infrastructure and facilities at the land customs stations and land ports, and for removal of port restrictions and other non-tariff barriers at identified LCS. The Indian side reiterated its request for at least one major land port without port restrictions or negative list of restrictions on the border with northeastern states of India for easier market access, starting with integrated checkpost ICP Agartala Akhora. Both leaders welcomed the progress made on India's proposal to fund the development of a second freight gate at Petropol Benapol ICP and directed the officials to complete the work at the earliest. In order to boost sub-regional connectivity, India requested Bangladesh for cooperation for initiating new sub-regional connectivity projects, including a highway from Hili in West Bengal to Mahendraganj in Meghalaya through Bangladesh and in this regard proposed preparation of a detailed project report DPR. In the same spirit, Bangladesh reiterated its eagerness to partner in the ongoing initiative of the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway project. The two leaders welcomed the successful completion of trial runs under the agreement on the use of Chattogram and Mongla ports ACMP and looked forward to its full operationalization at the earliest. The Indian side reiterated its request to work towards the expansion of the bilateral coastal shipping agreement of 2015 to include third country EXIM cargo. The two sides also agreed to expeditiously explore direct shipping links between the two countries. They also agreed to implement the decision to start riverine services under the Protocol on Inland Water Transit and Trade PIWTT on Dhulia to Rajshahi extension to Arecha routes 5 and 6 and Daudkandi to Sonamura routes 9 and 10 routes. The Indian side requested Bangladesh to complete remaining infrastructure, immigration and customs facilities for the operationalization of the Maitri Bridge over River Feni connecting Tripura with Bangladesh at an early date.
Managing Director of International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, today met External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in New Delhi. Dr. Jaishankar, in a tweet, said they discussed global economic and political developments. The External Affairs Minister apprised her of the transformation underway in India. They also exchanged views on Sri Lanka. Vladimir Putin has condemned Western sanctions imposed because of Russia's military operations in Ukraine as a fever that poses a threat to the entire world. In a speech to an economic forum in Vladivostok, he said Russia was coping with the West's economic aggression. However, the Russian president warned the quality of life for Europeans was being sacrificed to sanctions while poorer countries were losing access to food. He also said Europe was cheating poor countries out of Ukraine's grain. For months, Ukraine's seaports were blockaded by Russian forces, but since exports resumed at the start of August, Russia's leader asserted that only 2 grain ships had gone to Africa, which is not the case. He said he wanted to discuss revisiting the deal in remarks rejected by Ukraine as groundless. Russia launched its invasion on 24 February and now occupies around a fifth of Ukrainian territory. 6 months on, it has been pushed back from areas around Kiev and the north and now faces a Ukrainian counteroffensive in the south and east.
India has told the United Nations that it attaches high importance to ensuring the safety and security of nuclear facilities in Ukraine. Making remarks in the UN Security Council meeting on the situation in Ukraine, permanent representative of India to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, underlined that any accident involving nuclear facilities could potentially have severe consequences for public health and the environment. Appreciating the recent visit by the International Atomic Energy Agency team to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, Kamboj stressed that India continues to remain concerned over the situation in Ukraine. She said, since the beginning of the conflict, India has consistently called for an immediate cessation of hostilities between Russia and Ukraine and an end to violence.
Myanmar's military chief and coup leader Min Aung Hlaing has held his first and long-awaited meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in a further sign of the deepening ties between the two countries. Min Aung Hlaing, who seized power from Myanmar's elected government in a coup in February 2021, has visited Russia twice since the coup without securing an audience with Putin. He finally did so on Wednesday on the sidelines of the Moscow-organized Eastern Economic Forum EEF, which is taking place in Vladivostok, Russia's most eastern city. The RIA news agency quoted Putin as saying during the talks that relations are developing positively. Putin is only the second foreign leader to meet Min Aung Hlaing since the military's power grab. Russia's Deputy Minister for Defense, Alexander Fomin, and senior military officers from Myanmar were also present. Fomin was an honored guest at Myanmar's Armed Forces Day in March. Myanmar was plunged into crisis by the coup, which triggered large-scale protests and a nationwide movement of civil disobedience. More than 2,000 people have been killed in the military's crackdown on its opponents. Thousands of protesters have rallied in Indonesia's biggest cities seeking to pressure on the government to reverse the country's first subsidized fuel price hike in 8 years amid soaring inflation. Protests were underway in and around the capital Jakarta on Tuesday and in the cities of Surabaya, Makassar, Kendari, Aceh and Yogyakarta as part of a series of demonstrations led by students and labour unions that police say could draw tens of thousands of people onto street this week. Indonesian President Joko Widodo said he had little choice when he announced on Saturday an increase in subsidized fuel prices by about 30%, an unpopular move in the country of 270 million people.
Voters in Chile have overwhelmingly rejected a new constitution which was due to replace the one drawn up under General Augusto Pinochet's military rule. In a referendum, almost 62% voted against the progressive draft. The margin of the defeat is much larger than opinion polls had suggested. Chile's President Gabriel Boric, who had backed the new constitution, said he would work with Congress and civil society to come up with a new constitutional process. He said his government will have to listen to the voice of the people who had clearly not been satisfied with the proposal put forward by the Constitutional Convention. He said he would continue working to reach a proposal that would fill people with confidence and uniting them. In the US Open today, Russian player Andrei Rublev will clash with Francis Tiafoe of USA in the men's single and quarter-final match. In another quarter-final match, 13th seed Jannik Sinner will lock horns with 4th seed Carlos Alcaraz. In the women's singles, Czech Republic player Karolina Pliskova will clash with Aryna Sabalenka, while first seed Iga Swiatek of Poland will play with 8th seed Jessica Pegula of USA. In the men's singles, Karen Khachanov of Russia and Norway's player Casper Ruud have entered into the semi-final. On the other hand, Caroline Garcia of France and Ons Jabeur of Tunisia have made place in the women's semi-final matches.
Gulf Arab countries have demanded that the streaming service Netflix remove offensive content, citing unspecified material that violates Islamic and societal values and principles. A special committee of the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, a regional organization that includes Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain and Oman, made the request in a statement on Tuesday. Netflix was contacted to remove this content, including content directed at children, and to ensure adherence to the laws, the joint statement from the GCC Committee and the Saudi General Commission for Audiovisual Media noted. The move appears to be in response to Netflix airing content that includes LGBTQ characters as well as other material deemed immoral. Landslides triggered by heavy rain have killed at least 15 people, mostly women and children, in Kasisi in western Uganda. Some homes were also washed away by floodwaters that tore through the area located on the foothills of Rwenzori Mountains. A spokesperson from Uganda Red Cross says 6 people were injured in the landslides in Rukoki following torrential rains. A yet to be a certain number of people are feared missing. The region is prone to landslides and saw 3 people killed at Week in Bundibugyo district.
A quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses virtually the plenary session of the 7th Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok. Says India's Act Far East policy enhanced cooperation with Russian Far East in various fields. India-Japan 2+2 ministerial dialogue to be held in Tokyo on Thursday. India invites Bangladesh business community to use its port infrastructure for transshipment to other countries. Vladimir Putin condemns Western sanctions imposed because of Russia's military operations in Ukraine. New Delhi tells the United Nations that it attaches high importance to ensuring the safety and security of nuclear facilities in Ukraine. Thousands of protesters rally in Indonesia to reverse the hike in fuel price. Voters in Chile reject a new constitution which was due to replace the one drawn up under General Augusto Pinochet's military rule. World number 1 Iga Swiatek, Jonathan Sinner and Karolina Pliskova in action at quarter-final matches of the US Open. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Brazil.
Vaishnava Jana to tene kaeje pidi parai janire pare duke upakare kare toye manabi mananire sakele lokma chonvande ninana kare kenire vashkashmane nichela.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.